Well, welcome back to Along the Road. I hope you've enjoyed a wonderful Easter time, celebrating the resurrection of Christ. And now we move into normal time and looking forward to the day of Pentecost. But here we are, doing Along the Road, intersecting faith with life. I'm Pastor Josh.
I'm Katie, the Children's Discipleship Director.
And like we said, we love spending time with you, hearing from you, and going through different things with you. And today, we're switching topics and doing different things. And part of it is... it's on the list of things that you had, but the other part of it is I've been preparing for the local high school's baccalaureate. So we do that every year and trying to get some plans ready and what we're talking about. And other students currently, actually this week, students are taking SATs in the local schools. And I was thinking of all of those things when you kind of process that, especially when I think of high schoolers going to college or onto a work field or to a trade school. They always think about how they learn, what they're doing with learning, but they think in the academic way.
Yes.
And when we speak biblically or about faith, it's not just academics, it's about wisdom, what wisdom means and what that looks like. And so I thought maybe we'll look at just the beginning of Proverbs to see that it's not just our thoughts here. And then you have a very interesting process of this. I think they can help lots of people in different ways. And even people, if you are in an office and you learn some of these things.
Absolutely.
Because it's more than just book learning, it's wisdom. But if you see here in Proverbs chapter 1, the Proverbs of Solomon to the son of David, king of Israel. So Solomon's writing to his children, to his son. He says, to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. This lays out pretty much the whole book of Proverbs.
Yeah.
But most of us just focus on that last verse here, verse 7, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And that's true. And it's like this understanding, not fear as in I'm afraid of the boogeyman at night fear. It's
respect.
It's that respect, that awe and that reverence of something much greater than you are. And if you understand that someone is greater, smarter, wiser, has a better way, or even here on earth, you tend to listen to them more. And so the idea is that if you understand the Creator that way, who created in ways that your mind can't wrap around, that is where wisdom begins. And we've talked about a little bit of the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And that's why he talks about the youth, they gain knowledge, but it goes with discretion. I like the way it balances these things. Just because you know something doesn't mean you have to blurt it out to people.
Correct.
That's wisdom.
Witness children in Sunday school.
That's very true. And as children, learning the facts are great, and blurting them out are great. And sometimes, as a little child, you praise that because you want them to know things. But the wisdom then comes to when, or where, or
in front of whom,
or with what emotion to say it. You can say the same fact with different emotions.
Sure.
And wisdom is much larger than that. But of course, with children, from young children that you work through our youth director works with youth and young adults, I would even say all the way through the end of age, we all learn. We're supposed to be people like here who yearn for wisdom, that learning of who God is. Christ calls us to be disciples, as we've said many times here, lifelong learners.
Yes.
And so what you have before us is this a book I know someone wrote, and it's about learning.
Yep.
But it's not just about how you shove things in there.
Nope.
I've learned in many different ways, and I know there's differences in learning, but and some of it is, for me, it was old school. You just had to sit down and memorize these things. And then there's other ways to do things and how you take notes or don't take notes. And I figured out we're all very different in those things. But this person kind of laid it out in a better way, more organized way. more understandable way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think not just for children. So if you're listening or you're watching and you're like, oh, I don't have kids and this is for learning. I know the book was more written towards children. If you have kids or teaching kids. But I think if you begin to understand how someone learns and they're at your office space and you're trying to teach a new concept or bring a different idea.
Absolutely.
You can shift how you are sharing it with them or helping them grasp the idea if you begin to understand these things.
That's right.
So why don't you, I'll let you do this, give us the introduction to these things, what I'm talking about.
These things.
And then we can go through this. At the end or down in the description, we'll have a link to this PDF. You've kind of taken this person's books and put it into like a whole spreadsheet. A visual that you can have. But we'll have a link there. But follow along right now and just listen to these different parts and say, well, which one are you? And how could it be useful for you?
Right. Yeah. So the book is called 8 Great Smarts by Kathy Cook. And I came across it listening to an episode of Focus on the Family. And I thought, oh, that sounds really interesting. As you know, out in the Ethernet, there is a lot of different personality tests. But what I liked about this one is it's so practical.
Yeah.
So there's 8 great smarts. Everybody has all of them, but some of them are stronger in you than others. And this is where it applies to adults as well as children, because if you understand what someone's smart is, your approach is completely different, and your patience level can be completely different if their smart is different from yours. Right. So it really is a very helpful way of seeing things.
So if I'm understanding, you said everyone has it. So it's as if the smarts, plural, that the first thing I thought it was the fruit of the Spirit. We all have the fruit of the Spirit, which is multiple things.
Right.
Some of us have more patience, and some of us have more kindness, and we have to grow in them. But maybe like a big pie, we all have all 8 of these. Mm-hmm. But for some of us, I have a smaller sliver of one of them and a larger sliver of the other one.
Correct.
And knowing where my larger one is actually helps, or your larger one, and vice versa.
That's right.
So it's not like a personality thing. We're like, oh, that person is just this and they don't have this. This is, we all have pieces of this in us. Just there's some prominent ones that we lean towards. Okay. All right. I get that.
That's right. And once you know what your smarts are, you can learn how to strengthen them.
Oh, that's
And you
good.
can learn where you struggle.
I can make more even slices in my pie.
Yep.
Not completely.
Probably never completely.
Right. But you can work on it.
It's just the way that God created you. But that's right.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what all 8 smarts are.
Sure.
And then we'll talk about each one at a time.
Sounds great.
All right. So the first one is word smart. Mm-hmm. And someone who is word smart thinks with words. Mm-hmm. And then there's logic smart. Someone who is logic smart thinks with questions. Picture smart. They think in pictures. Music smart. They think with rhythms and melodies. Body smart. They think with movement and touch. Nature smart thinks with patterns.
Interesting.
I know. People smart. They think better around people or with people. Mm-hmm. And if you are self-smart, you think better with reflection.
Very interesting.
Okay. So that's the overview. Mm-hmm. So here we go. Word smart. So we'll do a description, how to strengthen it, what the struggles are, what your character is often like, what your relationships are like, how you relate spiritually, and then, especially for kids, some games to play.
Oh, I like the games.
Yeah, me too.
I like the games.
I thought that was a fun addition.
I like that addition. That's great.
Okay, so word smart. Someone who thinks with words. They often talk a lot. Mm-hmm. They're good at language. They love vocabulary. They write well. They like to share opinions.
Oh, yeah.
And they're good at explaining.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so ways to strengthen someone who's word smart. They can read out loud because you're having words in several ways. Yes. So you use variety to see what's most appealing. Mm-hmm. Have them write thank you notes.
Oh, yes.
And write lists. Watch information videos and then discuss them.
Like
And
they're rephrasing it back to you, or
Yes.
telling you, or talking about it.
that's
someone
right.
someone in the office that likes to tell you all about what they just learned in their conference, but they want to tell you about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mhm.
and teach you about it. Okay, yeah,
Yep.
I see that.
And then the last one under that category would be build vocabulary.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
Okay, so struggles. Somebody who's word smart can be distracted by their own voice.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Also, they can struggle with creating fiction and doing creative writing.
I would not have put that there. Yeah, that's interesting,
It
because
is
over here you said, they write well, but the
But
struggle
because they're
is that
explaining what they like, what they
so
know.
they would be good at writing instructions well.
That's right.
Or the process that they saw happen and how to repeat that process.
That's right.
But fiction is more
And
imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I see the difference.
That's the difference.
Yes, got it.
Yes. Okay. Character issues. They can be prideful.
Mm-hmm.
They can become unteachable
Interesting.
because they think they already know it.
Yes.
And they have issues of sins of the tongue, lying, teasing, arguing, and gossip.
Oh, very, very prominent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. With relationships, they tend to prioritize sharing knowledge. If you're an introvert and you're word smart, you want only meaningful conversation.
Yes.
Not chit chat.
You don't like the chit chat. You don't want to, that surface level talk. That's
Right.
probably why you're an introvert, because in groups you start all at the chit chat level.
Right.
And you just
Drives
want to
you nuts.
dive in the deep end
Yep.
and get there.
Yep.
I get it.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. And the other thing under relationships is they need people to listen.
Oh, yeah.
Don't just jump in with your own ideas. Just listen to them.
Mhm.
That gives them value. All right. In spiritual growth, reading and studying scripture is strong with them. Learning the names of God,
Oh, yeah.
words, right? And quality Christian books.
Okay.
For
I can see
games, you have categories
Of course.
and apples to apples.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay. Logic smart. Logic smart people think with questions.
They want to answer every question. Or they want to ask
They
every
want
question.
to ask every question.
Oh,
I
yeah.
will say, in summer camp, when I had finished 4th grade, they did one of those, everybody gets an award for something.
Yes.
Mine was the question kid.
Oh. I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see
because
that.
I want to know why and how and who. Yeah,
And you still do.
I
know,
absolutely
trust me.
still do.
It's a very helpful thing on our staff. I appreciate it.
All right, so logic smart people love math because of the logic behind it. Now, for me, I like geometry because of the proofs and the logic behind that, not the other math so much. Just saying.
Yes.
Okay, they love intellectual puzzles and figuring things out. They have a very strong common sense. They want to know why, and they like to take things apart to see how they work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see
The logic behind
Yeah.
it. Yep. Okay, things to strengthen somebody who's logic smart. Fun trivia.
Mm-hmm.
Learning thinking verbs.
Interesting.
I know. And what if questions.
Okay.
Being specific about how to think.
Okay, I can see that.
Learning, yeah. And then, but also open-ended exploration.
Well, that would be stretching, for sure.
Yeah.
There's not always an answer to open-ended exploration.
That's right.
Brainstorming or just imagining, and there's no solidified answer to some of those things.
Right.
Philosophy sometimes might be hard.
Right.
In that sense.
Sure.
Yes, I can see
Yep.
that. Oh,
yep.
yeah.
Yep. All right. Things that they have struggles with. They don't like it when rules don't work.
Okay.
Think spelling.
English language must be very hard.
Think spelling.
Yes. They never work in English.
They also struggle with nonfiction books and mysteries.
Oh, because they want the answer right all the way through.
Right.
Oh, I can see
All right.
that.
Character. They have intellectual pride and spiritual pride.
Okay, yeah.
They tend to worry because they follow the what ifs down the road.
Mm-hmm.
For them, it can be easy to cross the line from good to harm.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm. They like to test and challenge adults.
I've met a couple of those kids before. Yes, that's true.
I'm sure we all have.
I'm sure we have.
All right, in relationships.
Well, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If I was just thinking, if I was in the office, would this be more like a test and challenge authority type of thing? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, because me, I'm thinking not just children. I'm thinking anybody I walk
Wider
into
application.
in our staff.
Yep.
I used to see this. Yeah, okay, I see that. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So in relationships, they love to solve other people's problems. But their problem then becomes they can go to the extreme and it becomes a source of pride.
Oh, I helped you with this.
Look at all the things I did for you. Yeah. And again, they find small talk hard.
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. In spiritual growth, one of the things they find difficult is you can't just know about God because he's too mysterious.
Yeah, there is a mystery to who he is. If like I've said before, if our minds can fully know him and wrap around it, then he's too small. Right. Yeah, well, that's a step of faith.
But for a logic smart person,
that's hard.
That's an issue.
That's absolutely an issue,
yeah. And so that makes faith hard, that not knowing part.
Yeah, I can see that.
Games that a logic smart person would be Blocus, Clue, and Mastermind.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Picture smart. Somebody who thinks in pictures.
Okay.
They love the visuals in books.
Yes.
Like maps, diagrams, pictures. And they can create visuals for words with details and color.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yep. They remember what they see. And oftentimes there's humor because they see things that weren't intended.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So to strengthen someone who's picture smart, less screen time.
Yes. And that's good for any young kid anyway.
True.
I think so.
But particularly for somebody who's strong and picture smart because it's not being fed to you anymore.
Yeah.
Yep. Teach them to close their eyes and see it in their head. Like I learned when you make flashcards, you don't put the answer on the back. You put the answer with the question or with the problem.
Really?
Because then you see them.
You see the answer when you see the question.
Yes.
Oh.
And sometimes you can doodle a picture on top of it.
Yeah.
And they'll see the picture in their head, and then behind the picture they'll see the equation or the word and its definition or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. I still remember to this day when we were learning Greek in seminary, that there's these imperatives. The imperative is a command. And the ending of the command words, there's like different endings for different parts of the words, but they come in a series. But the ending was like to te tosan, so like those were the multiple endings. And someone said it, and there was like, oh yeah, a command is like a father and a son, and it's going toe to toe, toe to toe. And I have never so I know. I mean, I am not super proficient in Greek, but it is very helpful. But when I see that, or if I'm looking at some of the Greek language, sometimes in my study, and I see it, I go, oh, that's a command. Like it to this day, it sticks out.
That's
because
awesome.
That image of these people toe to toe sticks out in my head.
Yeah. And
I'll never forget that ending. I know I was okay, we're good. So that image really does help in that sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Another way is to read picture books, regardless of age.
Yeah.
And look at the pictures.
Study the picture
for the story and not
the words.
Not the words.
Interesting, yeah.
Yep. And then ask them the question, does it look right?
Okay, yeah. You have to analyze that and figure it out. I like that.
So that stretches that picture muscle.
Yeah.
All right. Struggles that a picture smart person can have. Pictures can then become a distraction.
Yeah.
Okay. Picture clues that might go with more than one word.
Oh, that would be hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Especially if you're cueing in on the picture clues and all of a sudden now it could be either.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, actually, a picture person may not like eye contact.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Because they see disappointment.
Oh, they see when someone was slightly disappointed or you didn't get that, and they really pick up on that emotion. Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Character for a picture smart person. They want to guard their eyes
Yeah, be careful what you see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it's going to have even more imprint.
Yeah.
Than someone else. Yep.
Yes.
They have a tendency to judge only on appearance.
They judge the cover of the book.
Looks like.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can see that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Seeing details may lead to criticism and negativity,
Mm-hmm.
and they can focus on the irrelevant.
Well, if you can find humor in something that is unintended, you can focus on something that people weren't even thinking is very relevant, and
right.
You just kind of get hung up there.
And, yes.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Oh,
yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right. Relationships. Take your child's skills and interests seriously. If pictures are important to them, don't dismiss it.
Yeah.
Use descriptive words to help a child visualize.
Okay. Yeah. Help them see it and give them more descriptive vocabulary.
And just a quick pause here. With taking their interest seriously, schools, if you are word smart or logic smart, you can thrive in schools.
Yeah, because they're you more.
Based on that.
Yes.
If your strengths are in these other smarts, you might not think you're smart.
Right. Right.
But you are, just in a different way.
Right.
And that's why it's really important to teach children how they're smart, because it changes their self-esteem drastically.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I know we've talked with our children sometimes, like, right now this is how you have to learn it. We see you learn better this way, but you have to stretch and learn this way. And you can figure it out, and then you can learn to do both. I see that happening. And I do see, at least nowadays, when they do projects or different things in schools, I see them, having to write an essay or having to write a response. But then there's other times they have to make a comic book as a response. Then there's other times they have to, so it's as if they're broadening the types of learning and reflections that the kids have to do, whether it's looking at a picture or writing about it or listening. And so I said, I didn't get to draw cartoons in school as a response,
Right.
But the more detail you put in your cartoon, the better the teacher knows that you understood what you were reading. And so that's a type of learning.
Yeah.
I can see. Okay. Yep. That makes sense. I get it. Yeah.
All right. So in spiritual growth with the picture smart person, God may prompt them visually.
Oh, yeah. I saw a picture of this. I see what you mean.
Yep. And they'll relate to God as creator.
Mm-hmm.
Bibles, there's a picture smart Bible and an amplified Bible in the Message.
Yeah.
Would all be good for some, because they are create more of a picture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, what did you see?
Yeah. As you're reading the scripture, as you're doing
right.
that. Yeah. Someone donated a Bible to us that was in the form of a graphic novel.
Yeah.
And it had 3 volumes to it. And
yeah.
I want to check it out, make sure it's actually faithful, and it was faithful to the scripture, and it was very interesting. And I gave it to our youth director, and so let a student borrow it, the first volume, and they were buzzing through it because it really captured their interest.
Resonated.
And they were reading, not scripture, but the scripture stories through this graphic novel in a way that they would never have read. And I think at the time that they gave me an update, they're like, oh, they're reading through Job right now. And I was like, what junior hire is reading through Job and is all excited about these things? Well, it's a graphic novel. And so they're actually getting the picture of scripture that way. And they can go into deeper study in their future. But what a way to help strengthen them in God's word. Right. What it is. Yeah, yes. I like that. Yeah.
Yep. And for games, illustrations, and Pictionary.
Oh, yeah. Very nice. Very nice.
All right. Music. Someone who's music smart thinks with rhythms and melodies.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes. So the key for this is that they're not just interested in music, but they have ability.
Okay.
To consider it a true smart.
Okay. All right.
Yep. And when they're excited, what do? They make music. Mm-hmm. That's just the way they express themselves. Yeah. They find rhythms and melodies in the world around them.
Yes.
And they love to make movies.
Of course. Not surprised. Yeah.
The other thing that was really interesting about this is they're good at tonal languages.
Oh, of
like
course.
Chinese.
Because they could hear the different tones.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
they
yeah.
understand the differentiations there. Yeah. Yep. So to strengthen them, you can play music in the background, attend concerts, because as we all know, live music is even better than
Yes.
can.
Yeah.
Yep. They can learn an instrument. They can listen to movie soundtracks because the story is told through music.
Yes.
Yep. And they can learn about the lives of composers and lyricists.
Yeah. There's a guy on YouTube that he's always about music, but he will take soundtracks, he'll take different things and talk about it. But what he does is he breaks down, for someone like this, he even breaks down the emotion felt as this diminished chord comes into this, and he plays this, and why this, and as he's doing it, he's talking here. He has the keyboard. Yep. You can see the keys he's putting, and he has the notes going on, and then he goes back and he listens to it along with this, and then you listen to it with the screen, with the movie that it was in, and so you begin to hear the tiniest little things, and he's
obviously music smart,
and really, but he also has the ability to explain it very well. So even if you're not music minded about, we all have that piece in us. Yeah. You can go, oh, that's very interesting. I need to listen better. Or I remember that movie when it was this way, and there was something going behind that I didn't understand, and it creates such a picture out of things, even as much to the music of silence is a whole other aspect. Somebody famously wrote a piece that was actually performed in New York City, and it was called Silence, and they had music on a thing, and the score said sit down, so the piano sits down, and you're supposed to count some beats, and then it says open the lid, and close it. But the noise and that was the music. So the piece literally changes every time you perform it, even though you never touch a key on the piano. It's very interesting.
That is interesting. All right, struggles that a music smart person will have. They can get distracted by music when studying. Yep. And to help them discern what works for them, music or silence.
Maybe it depends on what they're doing.
Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I can see that.
Yep. All right. In their character, they can idolize artists. Motivation matters. God pays attention to practice and performance.
Yeah, he's there through the whole thing.
Yeah. Whereas your audience will only hear your performance.
They only see the end.
Yeah. Yep. And they also have a tendency to perfectionism.
Yeah, I can see that.
Sure.
Yeah.
It follows. Yep.
It does.
All right. Relationships. Music is a way to bond with friends, and it creates vivid memories.
Yes.
And then listen to kids or adults explain why they like the lyrics.
Yeah.
Why is that meaningful to them?
Right. And that might also help them connect. Sometimes I find, I think I've known some people in this area, and they wouldn't be able to do that because they were just listening to the music and not as much the lyrics. And so sometimes I've seen times where I don't know if I like those lyrics, but that music was really good. But then that, I think, in line with all this other stuff, you're actually activating the other parts of their brain to say, did you hear the words? Yeah. Did you put the logic of those words? As much as they love the beauty of the music, and maybe those words match with the emotion of the music, but then you go, oh, but they weren't saying nice things. So you can kind of walk through that and teach them to connect. I see that.
And be discerning.
Yeah, very much so. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. All right. In their spiritual growth, they will often connect with God through praise and worship.
Yeah.
And it will not be a coincidence when God answers a prayer with a song.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah. And then games, the game Cranium, but that's actually good for lots of different sports.
Oh yeah, it has all different parts of it.
And the game Encore.
Yes.
Okay, halfway done. Hang in there, gang.
We got it.
Okay, body smart. Someone who's body smart thinks with movement and touch. So they need freedom and space.
Yeah.
And that motion is their power. They're good at large motor tasks. They have good eye-hand coordination, and they think while moving. And it may be something unrelated.
Yeah.
I know you have said that when you run.
Yeah. Often when I run, I'll do sermon prep or sermon study before I run, or when I'm really into, especially closer to the end of the week. And if there's an issue or I'm trying to piece something together, I just I just go for a run, and I don't necessarily ponder that thing, but that's what I ask myself before I start, and then see what happens. And usually somewhere in there, some peak falls together, and it's usually not intentional. Some of the best things have come out of if I'm on the treadmill, I might be watching something else. I don't even pay attention to the original thing, and boom, this it just comes out of nowhere. Or if I'm out running outside and you're listening to music or a podcast, this random thing that actually connects back to the sermon part that you've been really working on has nothing to do with the running or the thing you're listening to or the cars going by. The challenge then is to remember that when you get home.
That's right.
Yes, that's a bigger challenge. But that space is interesting because schools don't tend to this one a lot. I mean, I know that some schools are allowed a little bit more of movement.
They're getting better.
Or certain things, but that can also, if you allow too much in a setting like that, then that can hinder the other people from learning. So that balance is interesting to put that all in one place together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So to strengthen somebody with Body Smart, they'll be good at balance, coordination, flexibility, strength, endurance, and reflexes. But you can build on that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Get outside.
Mm-hmm.
This child or person will enjoy doing chores.
Right, because you're moving.
Yes.
Yeah. I get that.
Yep. And also skywriting.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, laying down and writing up in the sky, or just I can see that. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So struggles naturally would be sitting still.
Of course.
But learning to move respectfully as well.
Yeah.
For character, they need to learn to touch and move in positive ways.
Mm-hmm.
One thing they can do if they have to have something moving, instead of drumming it on the table, drum it on your thigh under the table. And then it's quiet. You're still moving.
Teach them how to move that is less distracting, but still helpful.
That's right.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yep. For relationships, somebody who's Body Smart will enjoy team sports.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And adults need to react acceptingly and not put down.
Yeah.
The famous line, "Why can't you sit still?"
I don't know how to sit still.
That's a put down.
You
don't want to do that.
Yes. Yeah, and I think you could easily, and maybe not easily, but train yourself to say, "We need you. I know it's hard.
That's right.
We need you to sit still right now, and then I'll give you some time to move in a little bit. So do that, and then we can come over here. So I think there are ways to do that, acknowledging that I know it's hard for you right now. I know I've used that, or I think in our growing up, and maybe even teaching my kids, we say, I know that's hard, but that's a muscle we can build. So we build the muscle of patience, or build the muscle of I can sit more still now,
sit quietly,
and then later I'm going to go crazy because I can.
Right.
And then so maybe it was only 5 minutes, and now it's 10 minutes, and then it's 20 minutes. But
there you go.
We term it at our house as just because it's not something you're natural at, we can build on it. And it's a muscle we can use, because I want to be able to interact with you, or I don't want to be at staff meeting just walking around the table because I need to move. That wouldn't make any sense,
Right.
Okay, I can sit here and not be distracting, and you build that muscle.
Right.
And the more we can teach, I think kids, with some of these that people naturally might be like, why can't you sit still?
Right.
We can teach them, I understand that, but also teach them that you can build the muscle that's opposite that for a little bit, and then use the one that you like the most later.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good one for them.
And by being sympathetic,
they may listen.
It's much more receptive.
Yes, I can see that.
Yep. All right. Spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
They learn by doing. They like drama and action.
Yeah.
They like shorter object lessons.
Yeah.
And you can teach them to learn to trust their gut reactions and physical responses. Because in someone who's Body Smart, they're likely to be right on.
Yeah. It's there for a reason.
Yeah. Yep. And games would be tag and Twister.
I can see that.
Yes.
Maybe Red Rover too.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. Nature Smart. They think with patterns.
Interesting.
So, someone who's nature smart loves animals. Mm. They notice shapes, sizes, colors, designs, and textures.
Yeah.
They think comparison and contrast.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Yep. They categorize easily.
Oh, yeah.
because they have seen
all these
the
patterns.
patterns.
Yeah.
And gardening is something that they probably love too. And part of it is in gardening is you're creating environment.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Yep.
very true.
Yep. Okay. Strengthen them. Help them see the details in nature.
Okay.
Don't just skip over it because you're not interested.
Yeah. You saw the pattern, but what are the pieces inside of that pattern? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Teach them how to compare, contrast, and categorize. And therefore, encourage collections.
Oh, interesting.
Rock collection, a leaf collection, a shell collection, whatever. Because then they're learning, all right, these are the spiral kinds of
Yes.
shells, and these are the bivalve shells, and
they can start categorizing
so on.
how they want. Yeah, that's true.
Yep. And, of course, go outside.
Go outside. Of course. It's always good.
Yes.
Always good to get outside.
Right. So, struggles that a nature person, technology can be a big distraction for them. Yep. And they get restless if they're inside too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this one. They teach them how to relate other subjects to nature.
Oh,
For
yeah.
instance, if you're learning about the Civil War in school, show them a topographical map of a battlefield and understand the strategy based on the
when they see the army went this way and on a flat map, they're like, why didn't they just go straight?
Right.
You know, and you show the topography of it and say, well, there was a pretty big hill right there and they came around this way. You know, oh, I see.
Right.
Yeah.
There's woods on this side, but a road on this side, so they're more hidden in the woods. Or, I mean, whatever it happens
I used to think that with maps once in a while, and I'd be like, they're sitting right across from each other. They could just look over and see each other. But then, you know, with Gettysburg, you know, where I lived, we would go visit Gettysburg, and you go, oh, you can't see anybody. You know, they're over the two burbs over there. No wonder you can't see the 1,000 soldiers over there. You have to send scouts over there. Made so much more sense when you can be there and see that. Yeah, I get
and
that.
And so for somebody who's nature smart, it's going to make even more sense.
Oh, yeah.
It's a way to connect with what could be just abstract historical facts.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. All right. For their character, they have to be careful to worship the creator, not the creation.
I can see that'd be difficult.
That would be a hang up for them.
Because it gets so intrigued in what's created. I see that, yeah.
Right. Also, pet care develops character for them.
Yeah.
And somebody who loves nature, that would be a natural thing.
I can see that. Yeah.
All right. Relationships. They like exploring and getting dirty with other nature smarts.
Of course. Yeah.
But they can enjoy cities too because they can see the patterns in the architecture. Now, granted, it's man-made and not
but you can
natural.
teach them it's there.
That's right.
Yeah,
because you teach them to look for it.
Look for those patterns. And some architects, you know, purposely do things to try and blend in or reflect nature, and that might help them too to see that there's value in that too. I see that.
Yep. For spiritual growth, they're going to connect with God better when they're outside.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, they like to worship outside.
That makes sense.
Yep. And for games, there's a game called Quirkle and one called Rock On, which is a geology game.
Oh, I bet that's interesting.
Yes. All right. The last two, I think, are very interesting because it's people smart and self smart.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes you can be both, but sometimes, I think, more often, you're one or the other.
Interesting.
And so it helps you to understand the other one that you're not.
The other one is. Okay, yeah, I can get that, yeah.
So, somebody who's people smart, they think with people around them.
Yeah.
So they get joy from sharing what they know and from understanding people. They can read body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice.
They like group projects.
Yes.
I see.
They do. Yeah. They like to understrengthen. Yeah. They like to bounce ideas back and forth.
Right.
Now, you can be extrovert or introvert and be people smart. Yeah. So understanding is helpful.
That would be helpful.
Less technology, of course. Here's an interesting one, though, to help them strengthen it. Watch TV without the sound.
Yeah.
To practice body language and facial expression.
And reading the expressions. Yeah, that would help. That would strengthen what they do.
Yep. All right. They can struggle when they are without input, when they're alone.
Oh, that would, yeah.
But many times they can work alone after brainstorming with others.
Right. They don't want to do the brainstorming. That's hard. And that's
by
difficult. By themselves.
Right.
And all this stuff. But now I have a direction to go. And
I've fed that need to be with people. And so then
that makes sense. Absolutely.
Yep. All right. For character, it's important to learn the difference between motivate and manipulate.
Oh, yeah. Because they could probably manipulate people pretty easily. Well, not easily, but naturally.
Yeah.
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 And you want to motivate people and not manipulate them. That's for
yes.
Sure.
And they need to learn boundaries.
Yeah.
Because somebody who likes to be with people likes to be with them all the
time. Oh, yeah, of course.
And for somebody who's not a people person, that gets old
that
really
can be
fast.
Hard. Yes, especially if it's a extroverted person, wanting to be around an introverted person, they just are clinging on to them. I'm sure that would be difficult.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. In relationships, somebody who's people smart is often a leader.
Yeah.
Which is logical. They can build consensus and an increased peace, and they're often evangelists.
Oh, yeah. They can read people well and connect with them.
Yeah, and connect. Yeah. Right. For spiritual growth, they may connect better with Jesus than with God because they see how he related to people.
Yeah. Because he was the human on earth, you
right.
know, and that is that relationship. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. And they, of course, like to worship in groups.
Of course.
The games are headbands and gestures.
Yeah.
Gestures is like charades.
Similar. Yeah, it is similar. Yeah, that would be good.
All right, last one, self-smart. They think with reflection.
Okay, yeah.
So they like choice and they like reflecting. They need quiet, peace, privacy, and space.
Yeah.
They like to study in depth.
Yeah.
They're a slow thinker. They don't make snap decisions.
Don't rush me.
Very much so.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
They like to sleep on their ideas and they like to think deeply and privately.
Interesting.
So, to strengthen them, they need to learn courage.
Yeah.
Provide questions for them ahead of time.
Okay. Yeah, that helps.
They have time to think about it. Yep. And they need to learn to form and word opinions and then defend them.
Yes, I'm sure that would be difficult.
Yeah.
It seems like they because itself, group work would be harder for them. You know, because you have an opinion and it might be a good one, but someone has a question and then you don't know how to defend it because you haven't thought through that part and it takes you.
That's right.
Then you have an answer the next day and you're like, I could have said this, but it's a day later.
It feels too late.
The group has moved on. You've made your decisions.
Right.
Okay. You know, and that can feel disheartening, especially, you know, well, at any stage if you ever learned about that. Yeah.
That's right. So, for struggles for the self-smart person, school can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Or a board meeting or anything, like
something that comes up out of nowhere type of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
So, one thing you can help a child with, because participation is always a thing in school.
Yeah.
When they know the question, answer, volunteer.
Yeah.
You already know it. You don't have to think about it.
Right.
And then you've done your participation.
That's right. Yeah. Jump in.
A simple thing, but it can be very life-changing for somebody who struggles that way.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. It's possible even if you, I mean, with a young child, you know what they're reading or studying. You can do some of that at home with them and just say, what are some questions you think might be asked? Or here are some questions that they might ask tomorrow.
Yep.
Some textbooks, I know they don't use books all the time anymore, but they'll have it on their Teams or in a PDF. They have questions at the end of their at-home reading. And sometimes teachers don't assign that, but if it's there, you go, why don't you read that? How do you answer that question?
Teach them how to survive.
So then they get to class and the teacher might ask that question and they're like, that's what we did last night at home. I know that answer, Right. Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah. All right. In terms of character, somebody who's self-smart can be self-centered.
Right. They rely on themselves for everything.
That's right.
Yeah.
They have pride in their own ideas, so they need to develop humility, and they also tend to value self-discipline.
Yeah, that would make sense. I can see that.
Yeah. In relationships, texting can help because
you have time.
Exactly.
You have time.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
somebody texts you, you don't have to immediately text them back. You can stop, you can think about it.
Right.
Okay, now I'm ready to text back. Yeah. They prefer the quiet and alone, but it may make them seem selfish.
Right. It's just what they prefer.
It's a survival thing in some ways for them.
Of course.
They like talking in the car because there's no eye contact.
That's true. That's true.
And give them time to think and reflect.
Yes.
In spiritual growth, they have a very deep private connection with God. Oftentimes journaling, meditation, and personal testimonies are important to them.
Yeah.
And for games, they like quiet things, puzzles, Legos, coloring, things that don't demand an immediate answer.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. And
Yeah.
it gives them time to think.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I can see these are very good, and I can see not only in children or grandchildren or whoever people have at home, but even in the workspace, if you start learning or thinking through maybe first what you are, that might help you understand how you're interacting or struggling to interact with people, but also, thinking what other people are in your household or at your workplace or a gathering. Maybe you're on a volunteer group, and in the volunteer group, you'll have people that have all of these. Almost all of these, depending on what type of group it is. Some of these, I don't think they would join a volunteer group naturally, but they might
file books at the library.
They might, and then they're part of a group or so. So learning that, I think, can be very helpful in understanding how they think. When someone says something to you and they see something that really wasn't intended, or is very strange, you go, oh wait, that sounds like that picture person.
Yeah.
They think, and then you could actually probably ask them some simple questions and hear that they describe things in pictures a lot, describing images. I go, okay, and start understanding that category some more. So I like I said, I know this was written for children and for education, but I see it as not just for children, but I see it for all of us and what we're doing. And it goes back to, the beginning of Proverbs, and that's where wisdom is. And we understand how to discern, not just gain knowledge, but to discern the type of learners we are, the way we've been created by the Creator, all differently. But I like how you said, we all have pieces of this.
We all have all of them.
If you were listening to all of these, you probably go, I do that one sometimes. I do that sometimes. But there are ones that you're like...
The red flag goes up, oh, that's me.
Yeah, these one or two, you're like, I'm one of those two for sure. So you kind of lean on those, but it's there. Mm-hmm. And so as we take our faith and look at this, I think it's wonderful that somebody can think through who we are as learners, put it in their categories, and say, this is how God created us. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's other ways and stuff, but this if you think of most people, so this covers most people I know. One way or the other to the thing that bubbles to the top for them.
That's right. Sure. And like I said at the beginning, what I like about this is it's so practical.
It is. It's very practical. It is. So what we'll do is we'll make sure we put a link. We'll get this PDF and then we'll get a link to it in our description. But I would say, hey, take some time this week. Think through one of your smarts. Get that PDF off here. Think through the smarts. But also, I challenge you to think through a couple other people in your life, whether it's at work or somewhere else.
Or your spouse.
and say, what smart do you think they are? And see if the way you would respond or have patience or interact would be slightly different because you understand, they might be a music person, so I'm going to change a little bit how I interact with them.
Right.
And see what value that gives. And then all the spiritual growth part where you bring that to God and He's teaching you and learning. I think all of that is a value as we come together. Because not just with relationships with other believers, but with non-believers, the better we can do in our relationships with them, the more we can express salvation, or to believers, we can encourage each other in Christ.
Sure.
So I would say they got homework to do.
Yes.
They do. And so between now and then, do your homework, find out some smarts, and gain some wisdom. We'll see you next week.
Take care.